So, what are 5 big mistakes people make in retirement from the perspective of a financial advisor? Stay with me. One of the most common mistakes is, of course, taking Social Security too early. Now, in the United States, currently, you can take Social Security as early as 62 or as late as age 70, and full retirement age is currently 67. About a third of Americans start taking their Social Security when they are 62, and there's a variety of reasons for that. They may be laid off and can't find work. They may have serious health issues. They may be facing age discrimination, or they're in a physically demanding job and just can't do it anymore, and they start collecting benefits at age 62. For most people, that is the wrong answer because you receive a diminished benefit at age 62. And each year that you wait, you get an increase of 8% on the amount that you would receive up until age 70. Typically, the correct answer is to wait to full retirement age, 67, at least to start taking retirement, up to age 70 at max to start taking Social Security. Now, the flip side of this problem, I see far less often, but I have seen cases where people waited way too long to start taking Social Security. Maybe they decided to work through their 60s until age 70, and when they got in their late 60s or when they got to 70, they realized that their health wasn't as strong as they believed their health to be, and now they just don't have the energy to live the life that they thought that they would live in retirement. Or in worst case scenario, I have seen cases where people were diagnosed with a major illness like cancer, heart attack, stroke, etc., that completely changed the trajectory of their lives when they were nearing retirement at nearly age 70. In situations like that, it almost always was the right decision to retire early and start taking Social Security a little bit earlier, but no one can really plan for those scenarios. So when they come, they often come out of left field. And they come as a surprise to the client, and they also come as a surprise to the financial advisor. So my first bit of advice would be don't retire too early and start taking your Social Security at age 62. But the flip side of that is please don't wait too long until you have a serious health event or your health starts to fail to start taking Social Security. Because also bad case is, you retire, start taking Social Security at 70 and die at 71 or die at 72. That's not exactly the retirement of most people's dreams. Next, this one is very important, and financial advisors rarely talk about it, but it's because we haven't seen this type of market condition in some time, but it may be making a comeback soon. Do not retire during a prolonged market downturn or during a recession. You can talk to people who retired during 2008 and 2009, and their portfolio never recovered from taking retirement during those really, really terrible years in the market. And what happens is it's something called sequence of returns. Taking returns during the first few years of your retirement when the portfolio value is down is devastating to the overall value of the portfolio in the long run. Now, to head this off for clients, and this occurred in 2022 as well, for my clients who retired in 2022 or wanted to retire in 2022, we made sure that they had a large cash buffer somewhere. Maybe they had cash sitting in savings or CDs or somewhere that they could rely on while the market recovered. Or we asked them to hold out for a period of time before they retired. Hopefully the person hasn't put in notice. Hopefully the person's job is not on the line and they have the option of working a year or two more just so they can get past the recessionary period in the market and they can start posting positive returns again on their portfolio. So if you're planning to retire either now or in the future, make sure you are paying attention to the overall economy and to market conditions. And if you do want to retire during a recession or a down market, you need to have a large cash buffer, bare minimum a year, often 2 or 3 years, because sometimes recessions are prolonged and you really don't want to touch that money, and make your plans accordingly. This is also very important, not making plans for taxes in retirement. And this overlaps a lot with accounting, but in an ideal world, a person will have an individual brokerage account or a joint account if they're married. They'll have a traditional IRA and they'll have a Roth IRA. And it's the interplay of all those accounts with how to minimize the amount of money you are paying to the federal government and to the state that you live in in taxes. It requires a fair amount of planning. Financial advisors can do it, but we typically refer people to accountants to figure it out, especially if a person is retiring early and basically holding off on taking their Social Security. There's actually some things you can really feng shui and design with those three types of accounts to minimize the amount of taxes you are paying to federal and state government. But proper tax preparation, and this is tax preparation for the long haul. I've seen it save people hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in certain situations by knowing what account to draw from, when and how much, and in what order. And it's actually changed the trajectory of some people's retirements. It's allowed people to retire early, or it's allowed people to have a nice inheritance for the next generation because they're not dying with zero. So proper tax planning to make sure your money lasts and to make sure you don't run out of money is critical in retirement planning. So not having that tax strategy in place definitely is a huge error that costs a lot of money. So I've occasionally seen this, people who just invest too conservatively. And occasionally I'll run across people who their entire savings for their retirement is in a CD or it's in a money market account. And they often say they're not getting fantastic returns. They don't connect that when you put money into a 401k or IRA, you actually have to select investments to go along with it. So that money may have been sitting in a CD or a money market for years. And, they're hearing that the market is posting all these fantastic returns, but they never see it on their account. Sometimes it's just they just don't know. And so for those few cases that I have seen that, when I talk to them about investing, they're often very risk adverse. They don't want to take the risk associated with being in the stock market, but just having money in a money market or in a CD will not post the level of returns that they really need in order to secure a long-term retirement. And inflation is often going to be the big determiner. It's basically going to kill their retirement at some point. And for those clients, it's often a conversation, and it often takes years to get them comfortable with putting money into the market so that they can start basically posting returns that beat the rate of inflation, and they can have enough for retirement. But they've missed all those years, oftentimes a decade or more, in the stock market where they could have been posting some very nice returns, and they could have been using that money for retirement. So, if you have your retirement account sitting in a savings account, sitting in a money market, sitting in a CD, I strongly advise that you talk to a financial advisor or you speak to someone about how to properly invest that money so that you're not taking on so little risk that you are jeopardizing your retirement and you are not going to be able to keep up with the rate of inflation. Finally, the last one is taking too large and too aggressive of withdrawals in early years. This is a big one, and we try to budget out how much that person will need in retirement. Sometimes we just don't get it right, or sometimes people want to spend a lot in kind of the go-go years when they're young and healthy, and they think that they can rein it back in later years. But the truth is, if people spend a lot in early years, it's a huge flag to me as a financial advisor. This is going to be a huge problem for the client, because odds are if they spend a lot in their early years, they're going to continue that spending pattern into retirement, and it can do a tremendous amount of damage early on in their retirement if they're just ripping through and taking out large sums every month and taking out emergency sums and taking extra sums for this, that, and a third. If you want to take out a lot of money or big sums in retirement, do it when you're 89. I don't have a problem with that. If, an 85-year-old client calls me and they want to take a really nice vacation and they're going to take a $10,000 disbursement from their account for that vacation, and their account balances are good and they've been very disciplined all their lives, I will, put a big bow on that money and give it to them and tell them to go out and enjoy their lives. But when someone is trying to do that at 65, and there's no plan for really the disbursement or the use of that money, it really creates a lot of damage in the retirement portfolio over the long haul. So Early on in your retirement, have a plan with your financial advisor or your accountant how much you can take out, and please stick to that. You need to have cash savings outside of your retirement account so that as emergencies occurs, opportunities to travel, dine out, and do other things that you want to do occur, you don't have to go to your portfolio and basically deconstruct it early on in your retirement. So there you have it. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, and if you found this information useful, please like, share, and subscribe.